The coursework I've had for this year, like as a whole, has been very demanding. At least the second semester has been. There's a lot of I'm in a lot of labs or classes that have labs attached, and lab reports and stuff can take up a lot of time. And it all seems to be due on like Tuesday or Monday through Tuesday. So the beginning of my weeks are very full from Sunday through Tuesday, Wednesday-ish. But then by the end of the week, it gets a little better. And then for this class specifically for clinical, it hasn't been too bad. The assignments haven't taken too much time and have been relatively easy to complete. And some of the hardest part was just when we were in groups was finding time that me and all my group members and stuff could meet up. But other than that, the coursework hasn't been too bad, and I feel like it's kind of been helping with like different areas of like athletic training or of a profession that you don't always think about. And then clinicals in general, they just take up time, and especially being in sport too, it can be difficult to time manage, but it hasn't been bad. Like the gen med rotations, they fit in where there's not really don't have anything to do at that time, or it's during practice time, so I'm not going from one to the other. It's not too bad. And overall, I guess it's been going well. I've been trying to work harder than I have the last few semesters, but we'll see. So one of the articles that I found really interesting was the Embracing Conflict article. And like the first section of it is titled The Evil of Ambiguity. And I just thought that this article really kind of showed that how like misunderstanding someone or what someone is trying to say can really cause issues or be the cause of a lot of conflict between people, whether it be patient and physician or in between interphysicians or coworkers. So the article says that ambiguity is the greatest stimulus for misunderstanding, lack of clarity, and conflict responses. And ambiguity permits people to interpret a potential level of understanding in a variety of ways. So what it's saying is that basically because me and somebody else hear somebody say the same thing, we can both interpret it in two completely different ways. And how it's interpreted all depends on the person it's said to and maybe the tone or the context it's said in. And you, as the person saying it, you don't know how each person is going to take something like that, because the way you said it or the way you intended it to be said may not be how either of the people understand it, which can be a big component of conflict. Like a lot of conflicts could arise because of maybe the tone that somebody said something in, and somebody reads too much into the tone instead of as much as what they're trying to say, not how they said it. Which, just going off my own personal experience, that's a big thing. Like with softball, is like on the field and stuff, and in the moment when something happens, you just kind of snap and you're like, hey, you need to, like, I know I do it a lot, and a lot of the coaches Zurich has said is, listen to what they're saying, not how they're saying it in the moment, because everybody gets fired up and stuff. And if afterwards, if you want to come up to him later and be like, hey, what did you mean by that, then you can ask him, and it's not as much of, oh, they're mad at me because I didn't do that right, or I wasn't in this spot. But really they may have just been like, hey, next time, this is where you need to be, which that's all interpretation of not only tone but what is being said. And so the article goes on to talk about that, and then it talks about the leader's individual and personal disposition towards conflict. So say your boss just absolutely hates conflict and never wants to be a part of it, then they're never going to be very adamant that conflict between workers is resolved. And I think that's a big issue, is like, if your boss isn't going to do something, why would you want to do it? But if your boss is very like, hey, we need to resolve this conflict, we need to figure this out, or they're very big in at least getting to the source and finding out what really happened and hearing both sides, then workers in between each other or with their bosses, they may feel the same way. They may be like, okay, we need to sit down and talk about this. And I think that can just be applied to, like, in the AT room. If, the head AT is not big on conflict, nobody's going to want to come to them with issues that they have because they don't want to start issues and they know they don't like it, which can just cause problems throughout the organization. And for personally, how I handle conflict is probably not the best. I don't avoid it. Like, if somebody has a problem, I have no problem talking about it. But for me, like, most of the time, if I have a problem, it doesn't really affect me too much, or I can get over it, and I don't really think too much into it or worry about it. I can let things go, but I know a lot of people aren't like that. So if somebody has a problem and they want to talk about it, I'll talk about it, but I'm also very, like, I'll just say whatever I know they want to hear, whether or not I mean it, because I just don't want to deal with it, and I don't think it's that big a deal normally. So if somebody has an issue and, they want to talk, they're talking, and they say, hey, like, I don't like, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I'll try to fix that, when I know I probably am not going to change how I'm doing something, but I just want to make them feel better, make them feel like they've accomplished something. And I know that's not the best way to go about things, and I really try to work on it and really be honest and not try to sugarcoat things as much and just be like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, when I know you're not going to. I try to be like, that's just not really how I am as a person, and I try, but I try my best to be honest, but it doesn't always happen that way. And I just think that this can be implemented in every athletic training room, or just in your lives in general, is just make sure you're being clear on what you're saying and how you're saying it. And if you think that there's any way it could be misconstrued, that you talk to the person afterwards and be like, hey, this is exactly what I meant by this. And I think that can help prevent a lot of conflict.